Hello, my fellow webheads. It's your friendly neighborhood Jerry Rasco, and today we are talking about Spider-Man, specifically issue number 72 of The Amazing Spider-Man. So I just want to, as I always do at the beginning of every video, thank everybody who has been supporting and subscribing to the channel. As of the recording of this video, we are up over 400 and heading towards 500 subscribers, which is amazing. The goal at the beginning of the year was to get to 1,000 subscribers by the end, and we are on our way to do that. And that, of course, is all due to all of you. So thank you so much. Hopefully, if you've subscribed, you're continuing to enjoy the content. We're adding more review streams, and we'll be going over that in a second. So if Spidey's not your cup of tea, there's the X-Men, Hulk, etc., etc. Again, we're going to go over that in just a second. The other thing is, if you're new here and you've just found the channel and you have not subscribed yet, you might want to do that. And here's why. That is because there is... when we get to 1,000 subscribers, we're going to be drawing at random subscribers to win free artwork. I have created original, one-of-a-kind, full color illustrations for each of the review streams that we have. And one lucky winner is going to win one of these. So, we're going to pick one winner for each of these, and they're going to get them not only for free, but even shipped to them for free. So there's no purchase necessary. All you have to do is click that button. And if you're here when we get to 1,000 subscribers, you could win the Avengers. You could win Spider-Man. You could win the X-Men. You could win Captain America, one of our upcoming streams that we're going to be having here on the channel very soon, as well as a Fantastic Four, again, another upcoming stream, and of course, the Incredible Hulk. So all you have to do is hit that subscribe button, and you could be a lucky winner of free artwork. So if you haven't, please consider subscribing, and then that way you can be part of this community that we're building with the channel. So that being said, I do want to talk about this comic for sure, because this is probably one of the best ones, in my opinion, that we've reviewed on the channel so far. And I'm very excited to get into it with you. So with that said, let's cut over to the comic. So here's the cover to Amazing Spider-Man number 72. And I think this is an awesome cover. It does everything you want with a cover, which is you have drama, you have action, you have bold, bright characters on a neutral background. It's perfect. I love the symbolism of the Shocker destroying this spider symbol and blasting it apart. And then one of the things I want to talk about is this pose of the Shocker. Like, this is a great, in my notes here I put, that's a great power pose. So if you're not familiar with the character, last time we saw the Shocker was issue number 46 of Amazing Spider-Man. You can go back in the playlist and you can check that out. But the Shocker is a character that doesn't get a lot of respect these days. Obviously, the name is goofy and people make fun of the costume. But in my opinion, especially when you compare to today's aesthetic of superhero comics, where everybody's concerned about you have to show seams and straps and buckles and belts and zippers and snaps and every detail, it has to be functional and, that kind of stuff. Well, the Shocker is one of the earliest kind of functional costume characters. If you're not familiar, again, he has vibration power. So the costume generates vibrations that he uses those gauntlets on his hands to direct. So he can smash stuff. He can cushion, like if he's getting punched or hit, he can vibrate to cushion the blow. He can do a lot of cool stuff with it. And so his costume is made of a padded, sort of quilted material to protect his body from the vibrations. You have the gauntlets, which focus the power, and then you have these sort of conduits that go up his arm and attach into the costume, which would, again, power the device. Makes sense. For me, the only thing I don't like maybe is the color combo, yellow and brown, but we've seen so many green and purple villains when it comes to Spidey. It's nice to see something that branches out a little differently. And of course, you wouldn't want to use red and blue on this character because then you're going to be competing with Spidey's costume. So the yellow and brown makes sense. It's just not the most exciting color choice. But like I was saying, the power pose, his arms is where the force of his power comes from, these vibration blasts that are breaking the wall apart. So he has planted his foot back behind him securely, as if it's so powerful it would push him right off the cover if he didn't have his foot planted down there. So I really like that. I think that's a really good idea. It's a great pose. I think it's a much cooler character than people give him credit for, but that's just me. So that said, great cover. Let's jump into the inside. As I always tell you at this stage of the game, this is a scanned PDF copy of the comic. So this is exactly what it would have looked like off the stands in 1969 when it was published. And so you get all these original ads, you get the page turns, you get the effect of the 4-color printing technology of the time. It's as close as we can get to having some of these amazing comics in our hands. Yes, there are people that own copies of these. They're extremely expensive. And to be honest, it's just really hard to have a camera looking down at a comic that you're holding in your hands and kind of move around. With here, this is digital. So Marvel scanned these into PDF files that you can look at on your computer. So it gives us the option to zoom in, zoom out, change pages very easily as we want, and no glare. So overall, I really love this format for what we're doing. Let's talk about the creative team, because we do have a slight change here. To be honest with you, I almost missed this when I first read through it, because I just sort of skimmed and went, yep, Stan, John Romita, Jim Mooney, that's the team that we've been seeing the last several issues, and they'd really been gelling together extremely well. Now we throw into the mix John Buscema, or as they put here, Big John Buscema, which was his nickname, Big John. John Buscema is right up there in the pantheon of great Silver Age Marvel artists, maybe just Marvel artists of all time. So real quick, if you're not familiar with John Buscema, I don't know how you're not. He started out doing commercial art. He started with the usual things of like cowboys, jungle comics. One of the things he said he was most proud of was he did a Sinbad the Sailor comic. And then, of course, he got into Marvel. And basically, John Romita drew at least one issue of nearly every major title that Marvel published at one time or another. So that's how prolific he was. He was known to be able to pencil 2 pages a day. And his style fit everybody. So just real quick, Avengers, Silver Surfer, Conan, that's where I'm most familiar with John Buscema, is on Conan. The Fantastic Four, Thor, and I mean, just unbelievable. His first Marvel work was pencils and inks over Nick Fury, actually just pencils, over Nick Fury, Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D., but he worked over Jack Kirby layouts. So for me, I'm going to cut back here to me just for a second, because I want to tell you what I think is probably one of John Buscema's biggest contributions to comics, and that is this book right here, How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way by John Buscema. And this book alone, I mean, this thing has been in, I don't even know what printing this is. Let's see if I can find out real quick. I mean, this thing came out, I think, in the late 70s originally. Yeah, so original copyright's 1978. Let's see here. It does not tell me which printing this is. But I mean, you know, this was bought in the 2000s. So this thing has gone back to print so many times. It's unbelievable. And, you know, the stuff that's in here has coached artists for literally decades. Thousands of artists have probably studied essentially at the feet of John Buscema through that book. So to me, that's one of his biggest legacies, because, you know, the building blocks of what you need to know are really all in there, and it's phenomenal stuff. And it's, you know, even me, I personally have been drawing my own comics for years now, as well as drawing comics for others, and I still find gems in that book. So I mean, I can't recommend it enough. And in general, John Buscema is obviously a giant part of that. So there's our history of John. So John is doing the layouts on this book, John Buscema, John Romita, and Jim. So John Romita is then doing pencils over the layouts. Jim Mooney is doing inks over John Romita. So you've got a very interesting team. And for me, seeing John Buscema laying out the pages and then John Romita penciling over it, this is like, this is like Leonardo da Vinci and Michelangelo collaborating on a painting or a sculpture or something. It's that kind of, art power. So that's maybe why this is such a great issue. The splash page here is very, very good. So real quick story recap. Spidey, this is the tail end of this, hopefully the tail end of this weird, crazy ancient tablet storyline. So there was an ancient tablet that was discovered. The Kingpin stole it. Spidey recovered it. The Kingpin sort of insinuated that Spidey was working with him. Actually, he didn't insinuate, he flat out said it. So Spidey, the authorities think he was part of the team trying to rob it, so they have been going after him as a criminal. He realizes to clear his name, he's got to get the tablet back. He does. He gets it to Captain Stacy, and now he's trying to figure out what's next, right? So the police are still after Spidey. Captain Stacy has the tablet, and then it takes us to here. And we see the Shocker breaking into Captain Stacy's house, theoretically, which we'll see in just a second, to get the tablet. It is for one, the splash page. I love a splash page. I've said this a million times. When you jump right into the story, that is exactly what I'm looking for. Don't waste the real estate. Let's get right into this story. Give us the big explosive picture. It's going to capture my imagination and go, now I got to read through the rest of this book. So that's what we have here. The only complaint I had, which is very minimal, the whole wall is coming down, which is cool. Makes sense. He's busted a hole in the wall, and he's giving him this kind of little zap. And I think this could have been a little bit of a bigger effect there. However, when you go to the next page, the Shocker says, I hit him with my weakest power, basically. So you go, okay, fair enough. Maybe that's why it was kind of small. The last time, as I mentioned, the last time we saw the Shocker was issue number 46 of Amazing Spider-Man. So we've gone 26 issues plus at least one, if not two annuals since we saw the Shocker. So it's been a good 2+ years since readers have seen this villain. So it's nice to see him come back, as opposed to just retreading the same. Like if this was the Kingpin again, it would be getting a little old. So this is nice. Great camera angles, awesome stuff. Great lighting here as he's standing in front of the fireplace and blasting open the safe so he can get this tablet. Terrific shading. From a story perspective, I did question. So the Shocker says according to the newspapers, this tablet should be here. Why would newspapers print that Captain Stacy is holding on to an object that's already been stolen once in his private home? Like, he's a private citizen. Like, why would he not bring it to a bank, to police headquarters, something like that? The fact that it's in his house and that a reporter somehow found out and was and explained it to the world in a newspaper, so the Shocker knew to come here, that seems crazy to me. The other thing I'll talk about from an art perspective, again, everything here is really, really good, and this is very minor nitpicky stuff. Gwen is running towards the noise, and her running pose is terrific. Her head is forward, her whole body's leaning forward, which indicates she's running hard. That's perfect. The only thing I'd like to see is her hair maybe flowing back more. It's very kind of hanging down. If she's moving fast enough for this hair tie to be whipping back behind her, I want to see her hair doing the same thing. And it's one of those things where I think that's not uncommon in this era of comics. Like, we'll see a couple examples later where the hair is sort of just drawn as this is your hair. Your hair is this style. It's on your head. It doesn't matter if you're moving fast, upside down, whatever. Sometimes that hair is just drawn the way it's drawn. And I feel like that's kind of what's happening here, where it really should be flowing around her more. And then this piece, actually, I had a note here where I was like, Gwen is in this page is a giant. Like, she comes in the room and she's standing there looking down. Her dad's on the floor. The Shocker is crouched above him, which is fine. He's crouched down. He's not on his knees. So even crouched down, he's got to be, 4 feet high. Like, he's crouched pretty well, but he's not like a toddler. And she is like looming above him. So there's a big part of me was like, what is happening? And then it dawned on me, maybe this is the explanation here, and I had not really realized it. And maybe that's because so this tells me maybe it wasn't set up that great in the background. I think over here on the left-hand page, I think that is supposed to be a staircase. So maybe Captain Stacy, where he's at in his office, maybe it's in the basement. Or something like that. So Gwen would have to come down the stairs to get to the office. So maybe she's standing on some stairs looking down at the scene. Again, I'm kind of stretching there. And the problem is when you get to here, it's a great splash page. It's very focused on Captain Stacy, Shocker, and some details, chair, lamps, stuff like that. We see a fireplace. We don't really get a good, real wide shot where we see the whole room, the whole layout. So I can't tell if that's what the case is. But I mean, I'm going to go with that for now and explain it. And because we know that she's not like an 8-foot tall giant. Shocker takes off. The Captain Stacy is just fine. And she's going to call the police. This is a great image of Gwen. This is a beautiful face, really well done. The eyes are terrific, kind of looking off, as she's picking up the phone to call the police. Great angle, kind of slightly looking up from below this, side table where the phone is. That's just a really, really good, good illustration in a small panel. So really nice stuff there. We cut to this pawn shop. Now, obviously, the Shocker is not going to be able to pawn off this tablet to some, rinky-dink pawn shop guy. But he's like, the right people, put them together. I'm going to auction this thing off to the highest bidder. And the guy's like, no way. Spidey is involved with this. Nobody wants to deal with that guy because he's roughed people up recently. And Shocker's like, all right, we'll deal with that. This pawn shop guy, he reminds me completely of the pawn shop owner from the movie The Crow. So I am going to try to get a photo. As I'm recording this, I'm going to try to get a photo of that guy from that scene so you'll know what I'm talking about. But everything from the cigar, the bald head, the mustache, like he looks just like the guy that runs the pawn shop in The Crow here. But here in the comic, this is great stuff. I really like the details here. Good lighting as Shocker blasts the guy, knocks him down. And then I like the little detail. I'm going to zoom. So just real quick, I had the PDF file open for a while, so I went to zoom in. It gave me an error message. It wouldn't let me zoom in. So I just had to open it and refresh it. But yeah, you can see the detail of the thumb button on the gauntlet, I think is really, really cool. So great stuff. One of the things we talk about a lot in this series is the camera. So the camera is our eyes as the reader and where we are in relation to what's happening in the imagery. So like this, where the two of them are talking and they're up high in the panel, the camera, our eyes are down low looking up. Here we're behind the pawn shop owner. We're close up of the Shocker's face with his eyes through the mask. Now looking out, almost like a point of view of him using his powers. And then again, top view down, looking down. Awesome way to keep the camera moving and not using the same shot, the same size figures over and over. This is a very, very good visual storytelling, keeping it interesting for the viewer. So with each panel, we're reading, but you're also looking at the art and looking at the details, and both are telling the story, the words and the visuals. So great stuff, great layout. Overall, again, like I said, just phenomenal, and you're seeing all the really good stuff here. Shocker takes off. Peter hears about it while he's on the bus and gets off and decides it's time for Spidey. Excellent down shot. So again, talking about those cameras, we are on top of this building looking down at an extreme angle, and Spidey is crawling up towards us, and that's really nice. Now, a lot of times, one of the hard parts about doing a down shot like that, or the one here next to it is kind of a down shot too, is if this is just colored light blue, it's difficult to tell, is he crawling down the wall or up the wall? But with the grid pattern, here, let's zoom in, since we can do that. With the grid pattern, that tells us, it kind of reads as sidewalk or patio or something. So it reads as ground, not sky. So we know that he is climbing up the building to us. And then here we're looking down at him. Great pose, nice background, very simple background work, but it tells us, he's up high in the city. That's perfect. And now we cut back to the pawn shop. Good scene transition of the pawn shop there. To the pawn shop. We're changing from one page to the other. Doesn't need to be on a page turn, but at least it's not the last panel of this page. So we cut back, and they mentioned the Shocker. No one can take him. And now we change scenes again to the Shocker. And so that's a thematic change. So that's really nice. They've mentioned the Shocker. They've talked that nobody human can beat him. And boom, we have Spidey taking the fight to the Shocker. So that's a thematic scene change as opposed to a visual scene change, which is really, really good. Great kick, and Shocker's down, and he's like, wow, that's crazy. But he's not out. Shocker is still in the fight. It's no problem. And he's trying to blast Spidey with his power, and if he can't hit him, he'll knock down buildings and stuff around him. So again, creative ways of using the power is really nice. There's a coloring error here. Obviously, this part is supposed to be blue. It was colored pink. Whoops. But the way Spidey's flipping out of the way, the collapsing chimney is terrific. We've got awesome Dutch angles. Dutch angle, you take your 90 degrees and you turn it one way or to the other, and it adds speed, energy, excitement to the panel. And you usually want to tilt it towards where the motion is going. Now, this is, again, super slight nitpick. We as Western readers read from left to right, top to bottom in a Z fashion, right? So you go across. I would have flipped this panel. I would have had the Shocker. I would have had it tilted to the right instead of the left. And I would have flipped it so that the Shocker is shooting towards the right, because that's how we're going to read that panel. We're not going to go off the page to the left. We're going to go to the right, to the next panel. So I would have had him pointing that way and then tilt it down towards the way he's shooting, which is, again, that part of it is great. Again, super nitpicky, but I've said it several times in the past few episodes, either this one in Spidey or other of the streams. That's what we do here. We pick this apart, the good stuff and the bad stuff. And trust me, there's a lot more good stuff in this issue. Shocker knocks the floor out from under Spidey and he falls, but great reactions, awesome twisting of the body there. His shoulders are twisted in one direction, his hips are sort of twisted in the other direction, legs bent, perfect, great figure work there on a very simple panel, really. Now the Shocker heads over to see what's up and kind of thinks he's going to wrap this up. Now, the thing I didn't like here is, so Spidey shoots his web. So he's falling through the hole and he shoots his web up through the hole. So one, they're on a rooftop. So what would the web hit? So it wouldn't hit anything. Maybe, again, I think I talked about this a while back. There used to be a thing in Marvel called no prizes. And basically no prize was when you found an error, like a continuity error or something like that. If you could explain it in the letters, like if you wrote a letter and explained a reason for it, they would give you a no prize, which was literally no prize. That's why they called it that. But people thought it would be like a real prize. So it kind of became this running gag. So so what I'm saying is he's shooting his web up through the hole to save himself from falling. It should be coming out of the hole. We should see it here. But what is it going to attach to above the building if you're on the rooftop of the building, right? There's nothing above. So I'm going to argue he attaches his web to the edge of the hole and not up through the hole because there's nothing above it. So he shoots his web and it's grabbing that edge as he's falling down. That's my no prize answer. So that he lets that web stretch down and spring him back up, and he double kicks Shocker right in the guts. This is a very weird angle for the Shocker. It took me a minute to figure out what was going on. Basically, and I want to make sure that this is a family friendly. So I'm going to be kind about it. This is the Shocker's crotch. His head would be behind Spidey's legs. I don't understand why they chose that angle for us to be looking at. There's a bunch of different ways. The Shocker's leg could be sort of bent forward instead of just in a perfect split with his arms. It's very awkward and very unusual. So that part, I'm like, I don't mind Spidey kicking him to knock him out or think he knocks him out. But it's just a very odd pose for how to do it. And then so Spidey thinks he's unconscious and he's like, all right, I got to take him to the police. But I know why. My question was in my notes, why not web him up, right? That would be Spidey's normal MO. You knock a guy down, you web him up, he can't get away, and you could cart him off all tied up and he's not going to cause you any problems. But Spidey just picks him up without taking that second to web him up. Why? Because Shocker's faking. He's not really unconscious. He was just playing possum. Gets the jump. Great bend to Spidey there. Man, that guy's a limbo champion. Like, that's awesome. So Shocker grabs him, bends him in half, punches him hard, knocking him off the building. So nice little action sequence there. And again, it's one of those where you go, Spidey should have webbed him up. Then he couldn't have played possum. But it's a plot contrivance. You have to sometimes do that kind of stuff to move the story forward. Great crowd scene here. They all think Spidey is going to fall and die. And I'm like, have you guys not ever seen Spider-Man before? Like, he swings through this city constantly, flipping, diving, all over the place. People, I'm sure, have seen him just swinging by. Why would you ever think that falling off a building is going to kill Spidey? Like, he literally jumps off them on purpose. So, but the crowd scene is really good reactions, good expressions. I've said this before, crowd scenes are really hard to do. And so it's one of those things where this is done very, very well. Great, again, down shot. We establish the people, cars, the street, etc. So Spidey is shooting that web up to the ledge to get a hold, and Shocker's going to take the opportunity to take off, and Spidey gets a spider tracer on him so he can get back to him later. He's got to see Aunt May off as she is leaving for a while for her health, which is great. But again, down shot, and then you have an up shot behind Spidey. Love not the anatomy, just the figure work from behind, where you see like the curve of his head and that little bit of shading at the back of his head to really help sell that it's round and that this part, like right here, is closer to us than underneath. That's getting a little bit of a shadow. So terrific work there. Really, really great stuff. So he's going to take off, instead of trying to take the bus, he's going to just swing, climb, etc. around town, and he'll get to the station, to the train station faster that way. So he's sending Aunt May and Mrs. Watson there off to Florida where she can recuperate some. But just again, my question was like, what is Aunt May wearing? Like, what is this? Is it a doily hat? Like, what is this thing? I don't know. I can't say I've ever seen anybody wear a hat like that. That's something else. So maybe that's an old timey thing that's just kind of lost on me. I don't know, but man, that's crazy. And then we get a little bit of Peter, looking at the newspaper, and there's an article there about Kurt Connors, and we get a little backstory on his history with Kurt Connors as the Lizard, and which is cool. So it makes me wonder, maybe a little foreshadowing of a Lizard return. That would be cool. We haven't seen the Lizard in quite a while. So again, just like Shocker, like last time we saw was, it looks like issue 45. So yeah, it's been a couple of years since we've seen the Lizard in real time. So that would be very cool. Now we cut, and this is perfect. So, by the way, I complain about this a lot. John Romita himself, John Romita Sr., when he's laying out his pages, has a habit of taking something like this where Peter's in the rain talking about, gee, maybe I could do like a internship or a summer job with Dr. Connors. That'd be cool. And then, instead of this last panel of Peter still, it would cut to the next scene, which is this one of J. Jonah Jameson in the hospital. And again, there's no thematic transition. There's no visual transition. There's nothing. So, but what happens here, which is perfect, we got Peter. This is the conclusion of this scene where he's like, okay, got to start planning on how am I going to deal with the Shocker. And now we cut on a page turn to a brand new scene. Perfect. And this is J. Jonah Jameson. So FYI, part of it didn't really help Spidey's case in fighting the Kingpin. JJJ got in the middle, and Spidey had enough, so he grabbed him by the collar, he didn't really threaten him. He was just like, hey, we're gonna get through this right now. Like, what's your problem? And Jonah Jameson collapses. Jonah just passes out. He basically faints because, in my opinion, he's a coward. But he's been in the hospital for apparently like days, maybe weeks. And I'm like, for one, why is he still in the hospital? Two, who lets him smoke cigars in the hospital? Like, he's obviously good enough that he's raging and angry. So whatever heart issue or concerns, that's probably not a problem anymore. If he can get to this level of intensity without having a heart attack, there's no reason to keep him. And then they sedate him and don't bother to take the lit cigar out of his mouth. I'm like, what kind of hospital is this? This is crazy. But anyway, so this touches base just to go, hey, don't forget, there's this character named J. Jonah Jameson, and he's still ornery and feisty, and he did not kick it, and he will be back in business before you know it. Peter connects up with Gwen, and they have a little, kind of conversation about what happened. She explains, it's sort of off panel kind of, which is good. I don't need 10 panels of her retelling the story we saw. It just kind of says, she tells him, and it's like, oh man, okay, what's going to happen? And she kind of has not a sweet spot, but she certainly seems sympathetic towards Spidey. So he's like, hey, what do you know? They go in to grab something to drink, and who's there but Flash Thompson? So Flash Thompson had been off in the service, and he's home. And he immediately kind of starts flirting with Gwen. And I didn't like this at all, to be perfectly honest. Peter steps in and he's like, hey man, like last time I saw you, you were cool. And now you're standing here. I'm right here. And you're flirting with my girlfriend. Like, just because you're in a uniform, don't think you can get away with it. And Flash is a complete jerk. He blows him off. essentially says like, I'm so much better, better than you when I need a civilian. Like, come on. And then, the two of them get into it. And of all the things, Gwen, instead of being like, hey, listen, it's, I'm with Peter. Like, it's not cool to be, flirting with me in front of my boyfriend and being offended by that. She's offended by Peter being mad at it. Well, he and Flash have a history that goes way back before Gwen Stacy was in the picture at all. And so for her to act that way and then throw out this thing of like, you're never around when there's trouble, but he was in combat. Like, that's just cruel. And I really didn't like it. I didn't like the portrayal of Gwen. I didn't like seeing Flash slip into like he's 15 years old again. And in my opinion, Peter was kind of right. Like, these people were not okay. Like, it's not okay to hit on and flirt with a guy's girlfriend directly in front of him when he's right there, whether you have a uniform or not. So anyway, and Flash just blows it off. He's like, hey, and Peter's like, he's flirting with you right in front of me, and Flash plays it like, well, yeah, who wouldn't? Like, what a jerk. So yeah, and then Peter broods over it like he was in the wrong, and I don't care for that one bit. Just from the story, art's great, beautiful face. Gwen is absolutely gorgeous in these illustrations, in these panels. She's great. The face to face with Peter and Flash is great. Even him out in the rain moping around, really good. Great camera angles, again, to change things up. Terrific stuff. Here we have some more action. So this is really good. Shocker stops this armored truck that is transporting money. So he's going to rob some money. And I love how as this guy is literally being blasted out a door, like explosions, like the guy's getting blown up, basically, he has time to talk about what happened, about how it tore the armored doors right off the hinges while he's being flung out of a vehicle he had been driving. Like, but that's comics. And then here's what I was talking about with like the hair and stuff. So this guy's hair, you can see from the lines, it's all swept backwards. So he sweeps it back on the sides. He has the top. He kind of swirls it back, and he's laying face down after being through essentially an explosion, if you will, a concussive explosion. And his hair is still going in that same direction. Why isn't it hanging down in front? Why isn't it frazzled and kind of all over? It's a little tousled, but not much of anything. And so that's one of the things I was talking about before, where like it doesn't flow with like it's a real thing that would move and stuff. I get it. It's not long like Gwen Stacy's hair, but again, it wouldn't kill you to have like at least some of it kind of hanging down a little bit, that he looks a little more mussed up. But who's here to save the day? Spidey. I love it. I love the way when they depict Spider-Man not being a traditional superhero when it comes to fighting. He's not going to stand toe to toe and just trade punches often. He can, but he doesn't. He's going to jump around. He's going to use like this. He's going to use his legs. He's going to use his agility. I love that. And that's one of the things that really sets Spidey apart. So really good stuff here. This is, again, another weird pose for the Shocker. So Spidey grabs him around the head and then uses his momentum to kick him away and knock him down to the ground. And again, it's this weird sort of doing the splits pose. He grabbed him by the head and then kicked him off. There's any number of ways you could have positioned him so that the explosion wasn't right in the crotch. So I just thought that was a little weird. And again, a little odd. Maybe have him hit the wall or hit the ground harder. You could turn him sideways so that he's, kind of falling down. Maybe he's trying to brace himself. A bunch of stuff you could do. So Shockers gets back up. He's not done. And again, nice agility here with Spidey, the way he's leaping out of the way. Great. More of a close-up here. I like that too. So you've got this panel and this panel. Important. So that you do have your figures are the pretty much the exact same size in panel 3 and panel 5. So you have to have that variation in the middle. If you had a third panel of him kind of being the same, drawn in the same scale, it would look like it was supposed to be a flip book. Like he moved from here to here to here, and that's not what's happening, right? He's kind of jumping around all over. So you need to break that up. Very important. You don't want to have too many panels in a row where your figures are the same size and from the same angle. Because again, then it starts looking like a film strip, and that's not what we're going for. There are changes in movements and action happening in between the panels too. So like this panel, this is a good example, with the exception of the close up of the hand, a little bit of the Shocker being caught up in these 3 panels here for sure, and then definitely the last panel. All these figures are almost exactly the same size. And so that's where a little variation would be good. So you can have this first panel, Spidey's on the wall, he hits the wall, Shocker hits the wall starts collapsing. Now, this is where you could do a upshot from below Spidey, or maybe just past his ear where he's trying to web up the debris that's going to fall down on him to cushion him. You could do a top down looking through the rubble and seeing him down below, kind of going and trying to do it, something like that. So there's a way to change that up. Likewise here, you've got the rubble in the foreground. That's great. Shocker could be bigger, kind of, gloating over the top. Or you could do a wide shot. You could do a complete real high camera view down and see the pile of rubble, see the Shocker, make him really small. Then you get to this close up. So again, there's ways. And then the last page, if the last panel, not page, is the same size as the first panel, and the figure's the same size, that's okay. They're separated by 4 panels. So there's a lot of variation there that you could use. I mentioned before, like I think the Shocker has kind of some cool powers and it's a cool concept. So like Spidey, webs his feet together, and he can use the vibration powers that he has of his costume to shake it to vibrate the webs off of him, which is kind of cool. So that takes away one of Spidey's big, weapons. And then he lands a huge punch, but as Spidey says, he is no normal guy. So with his strength, which we all often overlook, Spidey is incredibly strong. I always say this: he can lift cars over his head. So a punch, he can take it. But that's a nice action there. I don't think we need this. So we'll zoom in a smidgen. What I mean by that is these. So we have all the energy lines. You have the motion. You've kind of blanked out the face where he's getting hit. I could deal with that. I don't need this down here. Just in the face, maybe a little on the shoulder and arm, on the chest, and then I would forego. This doesn't do anything for me on the arms or down into the torso and into the crotch. It just doesn't make any sense. I don't need all these lines. Little, like I said, head, shoulders, a little bit on the chest to sort of blend out from that white hot spot back into your color. That's all you need. But Spidey is, again, moving and grooving. He's got him and slams the old Shocker down. But everybody is still up and fighting. This is very nice. I like the wide panel. So Spidey is down to the ground. So because the Shocker they're both falling off the wall. He's stuck to the wall. Shocker blast shoots, knocks them both off the wall. And so Spidey's landed, but Shocker landed first, so he's up first. But this is a great horizontal panel to emphasize Spidey laying down on his, his side as he's getting up. So great use of the space for what the figures are doing there. That's really good. And then you've got Classic covers his face with webbing and then knocks him out with a real big punch and then webs him up and is like, oh, by the way, while you're unconscious, I took your gauntlets off There's nothing you can do about it. And again, the detail of the gauntlets is really, really good. You've got, you know, you've got the button, you've got the little finger guards, the little spaces there where I guess the air or whatever, the energy, whatever it is that comes out of these little holes at the top. Like the whole thing is really good. There is one small problem, and that is, you can see. So this is a gauntlet. It's like a circle. He puts his fist through it. So the bottom plate goes against his palm, right? And he holds it and goes like this. So we're seeing through this. This is Spidey behind, and there's no web lines. The costume web line pattern was left off, and this would be kind of part of his chin, and it was left off. So just a whoopsie on that part. Somebody missed a couple of ink lines there. Not the end of the world. It's one of those things where I think it was John Byrne, if you're not familiar, super famous Marvel, DC, independent artist, probably one of the Mount Rushmores of comic artists, certainly of the 80s, early 90s. I mean, the guy has done it all. And when he does, for a long time, he was doing commissions and putting them on his website, and he would put them up, and then inevitably there'd be a follow-up post where he'd go, I forgot to color in the shadow on here, or I missed this line here, or he's like, there's always one thing in every drawing that you miss, and then you go back and look at it later and go, oh, I forgot that, and you go back and fix it. And maybe that's what these lines were on Spidey's costume there. Cops are back up again because they think Spidey is in league with the Shocker, because everybody thinks he's a bad guy, so they take some pot shots at him as he takes off. But they find Shocker webbed up. They find the money, so they're like, hey, Spidey isn't a bad guy. So he's won these two guys over for sure. And the shadowing on the Shocker, on his face, on his arms, this is awesome. Like, this is really, really good stuff. It would be very easy to just draw him normally, show his eyes, that, but to shade him that way where he's, knocked out, webbed up, and deep in shadow, really cool. I think that's really good stuff. And then we get an awesome Spidey brooding at the top of a building. Of course, things aren't great. He didn't get any pictures. Everybody thinks he's still a bad guy. Gwen is mad at him. And, so he's Peter Parker. If he didn't have bad luck, he'd have no luck at all. The background here is excellent. These are really great, simple building shapes with the shading. Absolutely reads big city. Doesn't have to be specific to New York. Could be any big city, but it really, really works very well. And again, just a sign to tell you, like, if you're struggling with backgrounds, keep it simple. Simple lines, simple shadows, and as a reader, our mind will fill in the rest, especially if your foreground is really strong, your figure work is really strong. We're going to focus on that, and then nut jobs like me will break down the background behind it, but keep it simple. That's the easiest way to do it, and then all your focus is on your awesome figure work and your characters. So that is the end of this issue. So we're going to cut back over to the desk, and we're going to wrap this one up. So this is just a really good issue. You've got good action. We've got just enough of the supporting cast in there to remind us, hey, these people are still part of Peter's life, but it's not so much that this is a whole Peter Parker issue and not enough Spider-Man. Plenty of action. I like the Shocker. I know a lot of people don't, but I think it's nice to see a different villain come in. I've kind of been getting Kingpin fatigue, I guess you would call it. I've seen him so regularly lately, so it's nice to get a little break there. Seeing Big John Buscema, like I mentioned, there's things that I have sort of complained about at times with John Romita's layouts and how he designs the pages, the panels, when you change scenes, how you change scenes. I'm assuming that, again, if John Buscema laid this out, he brought his his aesthetic, his style to that, and really corrected a lot of the things that I found were issues in the past. So this is awesome. From an art standpoint, I'm ranking this a 9 out of 10. Again, how would you, I'm sure a lot of people are going, how would you give an issue of the Shocker a 9 out of 10? But this is solid. If you don't think about the character bias and you just look at this art, the storytelling, the visuals, camera angles, it's awesome. Oh, one more thing I want to point out, because I really didn't say a single word about it, very little, and that was the inking. Jim Mooney was so good that I didn't have anything to say. The inking was just part of it. It wasn't for me to, it wasn't separated. I wasn't breaking out going, oh, those lines are no good, or oh, those shadows are really bad, or why'd they do this? There was a couple of those very little things. That's, again, the sign of a great inker, a great letterer, a great colorist. When you don't notice them, that means they're doing an awesome job. They are at the top of their game, accentuating that art and bringing it to the next level. And that's what Jim Mooney did here. So I really had very, very few things to nitpick about the inks. So again, that's why I give this one a 9 out of 10. This is a really solid issue. I highly recommend it, as if you want to study an early issue of Spider-Man to learn really excellent storytelling techniques. This is a good one. So I hope you enjoyed it. As I always say, drop those comments. If you watch this video, let me know what you think about this issue. How do you feel about the Shocker? What do you think about the costume, the powers? The name obviously is kind of silly. But how do you feel? How did you like it? How do you think about the Gwen Stacy relationship? Some people are big Mary Jane fans. Some people are Gwen Stacy fans. There's a lot of that stuff in there. I love to hear what you have to think about this issue of Amazing Spider-Man. So thank you for being here with me. Thank you for spending your time checking this out. And don't forget to be here next week, same time, for even more Amazing Spider-Man.